r/ask Reddit. What's the biggest bullet you've ever dodged? I had 2 job offers in different states at the same time. The one I didn't take was offering more money, but I just didn't gel with the guy who would be my boss and really liked the guy who would be my boss at the lower offer. The better offer was in a state I had always wanted to live in, for a company I admired, but something felt off, so I went with the lower offer. I ended up meeting my wife in the city of the lower offer. Meanwhile, the company that had given me the higher offer abruptly closed and laid off their entire staff with no severance. So if I had taken that, I would have been stuck on the other side of the country with no job and no money. Similar story. 2 offers. One for a little more money. The other had way better retirement plan. The interview for the good benefits company just didn't feel right. Like the interviewer was trying to convince me not to take it. I took the other offer, and the good benefits company merged with another company, moved half their workforce to a 1-company town in BFE, Ohio, and laid off the rest. My interviewer at that company ended up becoming my co-worker at the other company, and his manager ended up being his and my manager at the other company. Once at a bar, a woman was surprisingly into me as we danced. If I had had more confidence back then, I definitely could have taken her home. In the end, one of my karaoke buddies ended up with her instead and got caught by her husband that night. I knew a guy that got stabbed by the husband after he went home with a woman. Apparently she liked seeing the husband go crazy on the dude she brought home. That time I didn't go along for the ride when a friend of mine was running weed years ago, back when it was more illegal. I was bored and unemployed at the time, and passed on this trip because I had to go to a job interview to be a zombie for Halloween festivities at an amusement park. I got the job. My friend got arrested and did 30 days in jail. That sounds like an awesome job. 2005. My friend and I evacuated New Orleans 2 days before Hurricane Katrina and drove to Mississippi with the little money we had. We were trying to decide on where to stay for the night, and it was between a mid-range hotel or the really cheap motel. Decided to spend a little more for the hotel. During the night, the eye of the storm came through Mississippi and flattened the roof of the motel we decided against. My mom wasn't going to leave for Katrina. I told her I was going to take me and my little sister and hitchhike if she didn't pack the car and leave within the hour. My dad didn't leave and he ended up on the roof with our neighbor because our house got flooded. No way all of us would have survived. Katrina decimated my town. Everything 2 miles inland or less was destroyed. In 1996, my parents were deciding between 2 houses to move into. They picked the new construction that resulted in being placed on shoddy soil and years of lawsuits when we ultimately moved in 2001. Anyway, the other house they could have picked, presumably on better soil, would have placed my older sister at Columbine High School as a freshman for the 1998 to 1999 school year. I got on an intercity bus and almost sat in the middle but moved and sat at the back. The bus later collided with a truck and got opened up like a tin can. If I had sat where I originally intended, I would have been killed. High school GF wanted to talk about baby names. I was headed to college. No thoughts of being a parent. My mom even found a note in my pocket listing her favorites if we had a boy. Anyway, we broke up after 2 years. The next guy she dated was a dad within 9.5 miles. My ex-girlfriend moved out of my house a day before the first lockdown in Spain. She previously pulled a knife on me. I almost fell for a pyramid scheme in high school. My friend brought me to one of their meetings, ACN, and I was so on board. But my parents talked me down. I was upset at them until I learned more about MLMs and quickly changed my mind. Sometimes I imagine where I'd be now if I went through with it. It wouldn't be pretty, that's for sure. Finishing up my paper route when I was a kid, walking home on the sidewalk next to a busy road with sister on the inside, me dragging our little buggy on the outside. Middle of winter, car jumps the curb and takes out our buggy. Neither of us know what the hell had just happened other than the ungodly scraping sound and that our buggy was gone. Find out later that the driver saw us run home scared and brought back our buggy, which was utterly destroyed in a crumpled heap. I was pulling the cart and my hand was on it, so I'm not sure how I avoided eating chrome that day. Not a single scratch on me. I still think about it regularly and it's been over 30 years. Had a friend who asked if I wanted to move to CA with him and his family. I was 16 and thought it sounded fun. I didn't know at the time, but he was actually rescuing me from my insane mother and a not so happy home life. When you are abused, sometimes it is hard to know you are abused until you become an adult and gain a perspective. I shudder to think what would have happened to me if I had stayed there. That's interesting. Can you elaborate on the situation if you don't mind? Like, were you close with them that they'd be okay to live with them in their same house? And if so, are you still close with them, if you don't mind? My friend was jealous that her sister was 2 months pregnant. We ended up having sex that night and she told me she'd like to conceive a child. I decided that was the perfect time to fake a no. For the next few hours, she kept feeling inside herself saying, "Are you sure you came?" After a while I had to fuss that I faked it. The proper answer is, I jerked off earlier today, so I didn't really have much come out. A year ago, almost to the day, I was offered a new job. It was exactly what I was looking for and was really excited. They told me they would email the contract, but after a week I hadn't had anything. After a lot of chasing, they told me they'd change the structure of the organization so the position wasn't available. I have a month's notice for my current job, and if I had taken the job, my notice period would have been after the cutoff date for furlough in the UK. The new job was in an industry that collapsed through the pandemic and the industry I work in has boomed. If I had received that email, I would have probably been close to bankruptcy now. When I was about 10 years old, I leaned backwards onto a tall bookcase shelf, which happened to have a sword collection on the highest shelf. Many of these swords had their blades exposed for show. And what would happen at that very moment? That shelf gave way and all of the swords came and landed on me, including my head. Surprisingly, I got not a single cut, no concussion, and only a small bruise on the head. And being young, I dismissed this incident with gracious forgetfulness. Bookcase of Damocles. I really needed a job and the manager at a dispensary in my area offered me a spot. I said no, and 4 days later they were raided and everyone got arrested. I'm confused. Did they not have a license? Or are the feds just raiding dispensaries because it's technically still illegal by federal law? Yes, the latter exactly. My first ever boyfriend dated me when I was 14 and he was 16. We only dated for 1 week before he took me into the woods and forced me to kiss him. I started to feel icky and broke it off that same day. 5 years later I found out that he was now in prison for raping 2 14-year-old girls. Was driving on a freeway in the right lane when there was a sudden traffic jam ahead. I slammed on my brakes and was about to swerve onto the shoulder when I noticed that I wasn't sure the semi behind me could stop, and I didn't know how long we actually had a shoulder. Construction was happening at the time. I made the decision to rear-end the car in front of me to stay off the shoulder. The truck went onto the shoulder, brakes squealing, and finally managed to stop when the back tires of their trailer were level with me. Good thing we weren't in a center lane and that we happened to have a shoulder at that moment. As a bonus, I stopped in time and didn't hit the car in front of me after all. Though I would have happily taken that hit, and hopefully only would have shook up the people in front of me, in place of literally being hit by a truck. You have some good split-second decision-making skills. Not me, but my friend. We were in a bar and she was talking to her dude she met on Tinder. When she turned around, I saw him put something into her beer. I walked up, pretended to stumble, and knocked it out of her hand. Apologized, told her I'd buy her next beer, and when we walked over to the bar I told her what he did. We left right after. Decided to grab a case of beer and play Mario Kart that night instead. I only tagged along because she asked me to, which I'm always perfectly happy to do. Glad I did. Pro tip to people: if you aren't in a shitty establishment, tell the bartender. The rapist may get some repercussions, at least kicked out. If you're in a shitty establishment, just gtfo. If the rapist is a regular, the staff may have their back. Could get sketchy for you. I was a teen driver not paying attention at an intersection at the crest of a hill with low visibility when the light turned green. The car behind me honked, and just as I was about to go, a truck barreled through the red light on the perpendicular road at decidedly ludicrous speed. If I had been paying attention and gone when the light turned green, I very likely would have been T-boned to death. Closest call I've ever had. Meet a guy years ago. Thought we were friends. Got into contact with him few years ago. He was acting sketchy, so I unfriended him. I look him up, found out he on sex offenders registry. I bought Hitman 2 Collector's Edition instead of Fallout 76 Power Armor Edition. 80mm mortar shell. Iraq 2003. Incoming alert was given and the shell hit right where myself and my captain were sitting. Friends and I went to the top of Bunker Hill in Boston. It's 294 steps and they are straight up. At the top I took a picture of them and backed up a little to get them in the view. After the picture I turned around and realized there was no rail and I had almost stepped directly into the hatch leading down the stairs. Alcoholism. I was trending towards work, play video games and get drunk as a lifestyle. I battled bouts of alcoholism in the past, a lot when I was depressed. I met my now wife and my life got better. She believed in the man I am, not the one I was becoming. Then we had our little guy, and I've not been so much as tipsy since. When the world is better off, might I go to the odd party and have a few? Sure, if the kid is cared for and my responsibilities are too. But on occasion is a far cry from a lifestyle. Met a girl on a dating app in college. Wasn't super attracted to her, but she was cool, successful and owned her own house. We talked for like 6 hours one evening. I worked evenings, 4 PM to 12 AM, and the next day I didn't have class. So I slept until like 11 AM. I woke up to like 5 missed calls and 10 text messages, both SMS and IM, in varying degrees of anger and sadness, mainly asking me what she did wrong and why I'm already ignoring her. I apologized and told her my work schedule, to which she apologized. Then she immediately starts trying to make plans for a date the next night. I just couldn't get over how obnoxiously pushy and clingy she already was. After not even 24 hours of getting to know me, I noped out and was glad this had happened early and not later on. When I was in high school, I think I was 15. My boyfriend and some of my friends were going to a party. My mom refused to let me go and made me stay in the room with her so I wouldn't sneak out. We got a call that night from one of my friends. My boyfriend got super drunk and called his sister to come pick him up. She was completely sober, but was hit by a drunk driver on the way home. She was killed instantly and my boyfriend was paralyzed from the waist down. I know I would have been in the car with them had I gone to the party. That was 25 years ago, but I still tell that story to any of my friends who say I promise I can drive just fine after drinking. I was 18 and nearly went to work as a live-in housekeeper for a single man overseas. I naively thought it was going to be a straightforward cleaning arrangement, and somehow my parents never thought to raise any concerns. Luckily I changed my mind and took a nanny job with a family instead. Not me, but my mom. This is way back in 2008. My mom used to travel to Mumbai for work every day. One particular day her boss berated her a lot, so she just outright quit and came home early. Luckily enough, she worked at the Taj Hotel, which was one of the targets of the 26/11 terrorist attacks that same night in Mumbai. 2008. Almost everyone in the building were killed by armed militants. Who knew rage quitting helps? I was really drunk. This girl who I wasn't interested in had been hassling me all night. Me being very drunk ended up taking her home. She kept insisting I didn't need a condom and that it was physically impossible for her to get pregnant. I wore one anyway. Cut to about 11 months later, she's pregnant with another guy's kid. I lost my mind when a friend was telling me about how he had an unprotected one-night stand because she told me she's infertile. Why on earth would anyone just blindly believe that? Thank God nothing ever came of it. But it's so baffling to me that anyone would believe a complete stranger with something that life-changing. 9mm. Christmas, 2008. Me and Lil Bro were opening gifts on the living room and a bullet came through our crappy roof, landing a few centimeters away from where we were. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.